The native people of Salooni use an indigenously designed watermill locally known as Gharat. The Gharat is made from the natural resources that are easily available in the area and operates through the water force coming from glaciers, perennial streams, and rivulets. The Gharats can be seen near rivers in the valley of Salooni. For a Gharat to function, the owner diverts water stream from the river using rocks towards the canal. The canal is designed to hold a good amount of water which will eventually be used to turn it. The canal, or locally known as a kul, diverts the water from river to the Gharat. When the canal approaches it, it gets narrower to increase the speed of water, which is essential for it to turn. When the canal gets closer to the Gharat, the grating made of wooden sticks is placed to prevent any rocks or debris to enter the canal. After the first grating, we can see a flow diverter, the main function of which is to expel the water when Gharat is not being used and to supply water when being used. The end point of water supply is the turbine, which as seen receives water through locally made wooden channels. In olden times, the turbine was made using hardwood, but with the advent of technology, the turbine is made using steel. The turbine is placed just below the water flow as seen here. It is in turn connected to turning shaft which is connected to wheel which grinds the grain. The base of turbine is on a class 2 lever which is used to lift the turbine higher or lower in order to adjust the speeds. In order to start the Gharat, the stopper plate from canal is removed and the water is allowed to enter the channel. The removal of stopper plate allows a huge amount of water to enter the canal which moves to the wooden channel. As soon as the amount of water hitting the turbine increases, the turbine starts moving and with it moves the huge stone wheel, the job of which is to grind the grains. The water dropping from height increases the energy which is essential to move the heavy stone grinding the grains. When the Gharat starts turning, the user puts a little amount of grains in the inlet to check the fineness of flour being ground. The grinding of grains is essentially done by putting grains in inlet and letting it grind between two huge stones. A minute gap between the stones is responsible for the fineness of the flour being produced. The output flour is checked by testing a small amount of grains and observing the output. To adjust the speed of Gharat, the lever shown here is either lifted or lowered according to the desired speed. The lifting of lever reduces the friction between the two stones and thus increasing the speed, and vice versa to reduce the speed. The interior of the building is purely handmade by erecting a rock wall without the use of cement or any other filling material. The interior is kept as basic as possible with a simple roof. One can see the walls slowly turning snowy with tiny particles of flour slowly depositing on the walls. The setup to supply grains to the grinding wheel is a wooden cone where the grains are put to constantly supply the inlet. The aim of the setup is to supply grains in intake in a controlled and a constant speed. Once the speed is set, the mouth of wooden cone is closed and the grain bag is emptied in the cone. Depending on the size, it can easily store 40 to 50 kilos of grain which can then be supplied slowly to grind it. Now comes the turn to set the supply speed of grains. A spout made of wood is carved and is attached to the bottom of the grain storage cone. The angle of spout is adjustable, which in turn adjusts the slope from which the grains are being supplied. As you can see in the video, a wooden stick attached to the cone is made to vibrate using the rotation of the main wheel. The continuous vibration of stick vibrates the spout and ensures the continuous supply of the grain to the inlet. The speed and slope settings supplies grain to the inlet as seen here. Some minor adjustments to the speed of Gharat allows the best quality of flour to be collected. And finally, the payment of using the Gharat is given in the form of a part of flour which has been made. Traditionally, a box is kept in which every user deposits 4 to 5% of the flour made as a payment to the owner of the Gharat. The first modern water turbine is said to be invented in 1849, but the Gharats have been in existence in these areas for hundreds of years. According to sources, the Gharats have been in existence since the 7th century. Apart from being an engineering marvel, it is totally environment friendly with zero pollution and a minimal maintenance. A beautiful machine and a must for the tourist to see one when visiting Salooni.